This is Wizard Grandpa's Stories.
Oh, hello, children. How nice to see you. Oh, I was just dreaming of many of you liking my videos. But it wasn't a dream, was it? You're very good children. As a special reward, I'd like to tell you a new story. And this is a story around Christmas time. And it's called The Cat on the Dovrefjell. Now, once upon a time, a long time ago, in the country of Finland, in the far north of Finland, where the weather is very cold and the snow very deep, there was a man who had a pet polar bear. If you've ever seen a polar bear, you'll know they're very big creatures, and they can be very fierce. Anyway, this man made friends with the polar bear when it was a baby. And it grew up with him as a companion all of its life. And now it's a fully grown creature, magnificent in size and power. And one winter the man thought to himself, I'd like to give a present to the King of Denmark. And I think the king would like my polar bear. Yes, I will give him as a present. And so he made ready and set off over the mountains, over and through the snow, to make his way to the King of Denmark. The weather was cold and snowy, and travelling was slow, so it was a long time over the mountains when he came to the village of Dovrefjell. A small village with not many houses, so the first house he came to, he knocked on the door. A man opened it. His name was Halvor. Yes, said Halvor, what can I do for you? Greetings, sir. I'm travelling with my polar bear, and we're just looking for someone to stay the night. It is Christmas Eve tonight, you know. A man and his pet should not be outside on a night like this. Well, said Halvor, my good man, I'd be more than happy to let you stay in my house, even with your rather large polar bear. But I'm afraid it's not possible tonight. No? Why not? Well, you see, every Christmas Eve, my house is invaded by trolls. Trolls from the forest come to my house by the 100, and they eat everything in it. And if there are any people here, they get eaten too. So please excuse me, I have to make a lot of food to leave here for them to keep them happy, because my wife and I, we are leaving here very soon. Well, the man with the polar bear was not at all bothered by this, and said to Halvor, it's fine, we don't mind. We're just happy to have somewhere to stay. And Halvor said, oh, very well, suit yourself. And he hurried up and together with his wife put on the kitchen table porridge, sandwiches, bacon, food of all sorts for the trolls to eat. And then Halvor and his wife disappeared and ran far away. Well, the man with the polar bear had a little nibble of this and a little nibble of that for their supper, and made themselves comfortable and went to sleep. The polar bear slept underneath the stove. There was just enough room. And the man himself went to the outside store, where there was plenty of straw to keep him warm. And then, as soon as it was dark, the noise began. Out of the woods there ran hundreds and hundreds of trolls, big ones and small ones, fat ones, thin ones, ones with long noses, ones with horns and with long tails, and most of them very hairy. They ran to Halvor's house, kicked the door open, and started gobbling all of the food. Well, the polar bear slept under the stove quite happily. He wasn't worried. But one of the younger trolls took a long stick, stuck it in a sausage in the fire, and poked it into the polar bear's face. "Here, kitty, 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 have a sausage, kitty, here you are." And the hot sausage burned the nose of the polar bear. Roar! If you've ever heard a polar bear angry and roaring, you'll know what that sounded like, and it wasn't very nice. The trolls froze. The polar bear pulled himself out from under the stove, raised himself up to his full height, and his head was touching the ceiling, and he roared. The trolls ran, and the polar bear ran after them. They were shrieking and screaming through the snow as the polar bear whacked them down one by one by one. He then came back to the house, free of trolls, settled back underneath the stove and went to sleep. The next morning, Halvor and his wife came back. The polar bear's owner had slept in the shed quite happily all night and knew nothing about what had happened. So he took his polar bear, they said thank you to Halvor and his wife, and they set off on their journey to visit the King of Denmark. Well, Halvor and his wife thought nothing more about this, because in fact they knew nothing of what had happened. 1 year later, on Christmas Eve, Halvor was chopping up wood in his garden. He was going to have to make a big fire to cook all the food for the trolls who he was expecting that night. And as he chopped, he heard a voice calling from the forest. It was one of those screechy kind of troll voices. "Halvor! Halvor!" "What is it?" he called. "Halvor! Can you hear me?" Yes, I can hear you. What do you want?" "Halvor, do you still have that little cat you had last Christmas Eve? The white one that was underneath the stove?" Halvor was a fairly clever man, and he realized what was going on here. "Well, funny you should say that," he called out. "I do still have that white cat that was sleeping under the stove last Christmas Eve. And she has had 7 kittens, all of them bigger, more fierce, and more hungry than she is." "Oh, then, Halvor, we won't be coming back to your house ever again. Goodbye." Halvor never saw the trolls that night, or any other night after that, thanks to the cat of the Dovrefjell. And that was the story of the cat of the Dovrefjell, who wasn't really a cat at all, as you know. Thank you for listening. Thank you for liking my videos. I'm so happy to see you all here again. And come back soon for some more stories from Wizard Grandpa.